In the paradigm of many selves, the psyche, the individual, is a fractal representation of the collective. What this means is that all of the people around you, directly and indirectly, reverberate in the identity, the pattern of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being that you embody, and that one can find the parent, the masculine, the feminine, the aunt, the teacher, the memes that are out there reverberating inside. Now, if you understand the paradigm of the mirror, this makes perfect sense, because in order to relate with the world, with oneself, with anyone else, in order to relay, you have to have an echo. That's another word for mirror. And in order to relay with all kinds of distinct patterns and people out there, one has to have lots of little mirrors, echoing, empathizing, and the brain has an entire region called mirror neurons. And what mirror neurons do is they synthesize the perceived or projected pattern that's out there, and they create a model. It seems like this person does this because of this and this and this. Based on that hypothesis, they would likely feel this or do this. And what we act on is our hypothesis, our projection of what we believe is true for the other person. Now, this creates a certain amount of harmony when the other person shares our belief about what they're doing and why they're doing it. When they have a different model of why they're doing what they're doing than ours, and both models are voiced, there will be a tension. Now, in an equal relationship, that tension will be resolved by the sanest model. And the sanest model is the model that converges with the most data points. It doesn't mean that it's true. It just means it's the model that converges with the most data points. You know, in science, there's this concept called Occam's razor. And it's a very convenient model because what it says, basically, what Occam said, was that the world, the universe, reality, is as simple as it possibly can be. Who says? Well, Occam does. And secondly, because that's true, according to Occam, we will always take the simplest possible theory about what's going on as the truth about what's going on until proven otherwise. Another way of saying it, Occam says, take the simplest approach. If in doubt, use that unless proven otherwise. This is not in any way scientific, but it is expedient and convenient as long as everyone adopts the meme, as long as everyone agrees that the true way is the simplest possible way. And why? Well, we get into the network effect. Because in order to reach synergy, You can kind of see the power of synergy if you draw a circle here and you put 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6, right? Now, the possibility field for 1 is 1. Mathematically, the possibility field for 1 is 1. The possibility field for 2 is 2. The possibility field for 3 is, well, as you move to 2, you get multiples. So you can multiply 2 by 2 and you can get 4. But we're still, relatively low. But as you go to 3, you can multiply 3 and get 9. As you bring in the third, you start to get an exponential synergy rather than just additions. And so you can kind of see the synergistic effect when you go, let's do a 5 system and a 6 system. So if we do a 5 system here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, this is a linear system, but it's really exponential because we do 6, 7, 8, 9. And then we can connect the dots here, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So we've got an exponential dynamic going on. And when we add just one dot here, it's not just one dot. When you're in an exponential system, when you add one dot, you add a line between every other dot. So you add this one dot to the network, and now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get 5 more connections from 1 because the 1 has in a network a relationship with 5 of the other people. You also get this dynamic in this, you have the exponential aspect of geometric networks, but you also have this emergent synergy that certain things will emerge in this network that could never emerge with just 5 separate individuals. And you can see that in a company enterprise where a single individual would never invent nuclear power. It's too specialized. And what you can see is that the possibility field expands exponentially based on how many people and thus how many nodes are in the network. So if you add a node here, it goes up. You add 7 for 1. You add a node here, you add 8 for 1. The more people are in the network that are in relationship with one another, the more powerful the additional individual becomes to the network. Because when you add the first person to the network, 1 and 2, you just go back and forth. But with 3, It's a little bit harder to see with it until you get into the bigger numbers, but you can turn 2 into 4, and you can invent the space in between. With 3, you can multiply it to get 9. And in this particular intuitive train of thought, I've, 1, drifted a little bit off of topic, and 2, this is a prompt to go and do more mathematics here. There's a point that I'm getting across here, and the important point, that's solid, independent of the flaws in these models here, is that the value of a network and the possibility of a network depends on how many people are functionally part of the network. So when you have a global network, you have a tremendously potent entity that can create emergent possibilities, probabilities, and actualities that could not and would not emerge in a very small, localized network. Well, the same is true with personas. So if you have a complex outer network of people in the outer world that you're creating mirror neurons to be able to relate to as a model, and we all have models that we create to explain other people, but the models are all flawed. Beginning with language, the models are all flawed, but they are useful nonetheless if they predict probable behavior a lot of the time. And so when I have a model of you that says you're going to say this for this reason, and you say that, even if it's not for the right reason, it's a useful model because I can predict the future now. And so mirror neurons help us predict the future with individuals that we're in relationship with. And that is a useful prediction because the efficiency of success and fun goes up when you can predict the future accurately. So any model that increases your odds of predicting the future, generally speaking, increases your success at what? Increasing your well-being. That's, people have faulty models for pursuing money or endless sex or whatever that don't always correlate with well-being, but they think they do, and that's what they're aiming for. So people are always aiming to be more successful by predicting the future more accurately, and as a result, leading to more well-being by making more choices to intersect with the future consciously. For example, if you're building a tunnel this way, and I'm building a tunnel this way, if I can predict the future, in this case, where your tunnel is going to connect, and I can hit that, now I've only done 1 mile of tunnel, but now I connect with your 1 mile, your 1 mile, your 3 miles of tunnel, and you get my 1 mile of tunnel. That's successful. If we can converge by predicting the future. What are we predicting? We're trying to predict where we're gonna hit. We're trying to predict the meeting point. And if we succeed, well, that just saved you $10 million in tunneling, and it saved me $30 million of tunneling, and we've got a network effect where I'm doing a certain amount of tunneling, you're doing a certain amount of tunneling, and it's a partnership. And so this kind of comes into, an important tension around personas. Because if you have a framework of personas, the first thing to be aware of is that personas are distinct. So there's a dialogue between personas. And this part A says, let's take a nap. And this part B says, no, let's go for a run. And part C says, why don't we catch a Netflix, right? Part B wants, so you've got these different personas. And then there's this witness here that's listening to these different personas and having to decide which way to steer the body, basically. Which way to steer the mind, the heart, the body towards A, B, or C. And the intelligent witness wants to know, both short and long term, what's the better outcome? And that's really a lot of what life is about, is learning through experience. What's the better outcome in this system of reality, in this particular system? So, for example, in the American system, where deep and intense feelings are taboo, if A wants to fully and deeply express all their feelings, and C wants to say it's no big deal and bury the feelings, and B wants to ask the other person to take care of their feelings, A may be correct from an abstract, intelligent point of view. Meaning, if everyone in the network would authentically express their feelings, hear their feelings, and respond to the feelings, then you would get what? The highest yield in sustainable well-being for that network, relative to the network that buried their feelings, etc. But you don't get benefits from doing intelligent things that take you out of a highly populated network into a very minimalistic network. So what I mean by that is, if you switch from email to C-mail. Now, what's C-mail? Well, it's this new thing that 3 or 4 people are using. It allows you to integrate voice, video, text, location, context in 3D forms, and you can create an object that combines all of it and then send it. And they can explore the object, engage with the video, the text, the audio, etc., and then they can send it back to you. But you need a C-mail module on your phone, on your computer, etc., in order to create C-mail and receive C-mail. Does anyone doubt that C-mail is dramatically, exponentially better than email? Well, by what metrics? It has 10 times the functionality, better cohesion, better engagement. You may even be able to, with aspects of C-mail, put on goggles and work with the object, sometimes in fingers, ask questions, point at things, bring in other data, and expand the object. It's 10 times better as a communication vehicle. So why might the witness choose email instead of C-mail? Well, if only 4 people have C-mail, and without the module to receive C-mail, you don't get the alert, and you don't know that you don't know. And if there's a lot of resistance, because in a flooded environment of stimulation, people are always trying to reduce the amount of newness. They say they're interested in newness. They want a new restaurant. What they mean is they want to drive to a slightly different place in the same car, using the same road system, using the same monetary system, with the same waitresses and paradigms and all that in a big building in their town that has very, very, very slightly different food. I want something new. Let's go to a new something we've done, it's hardly even new. Every month we go to a new something. That's not new. C-mail is new. You have to develop a new paradigm. You have to work with things. You may have to download an app. You may have to upgrade your phone. It's like, I don't want to do with that. What's it for? Why do we need to do that? So if I send a C-mail and 90% of the time you don't answer it, then email is better. Not because it's better, but because it has a bigger network. The potency is in the size of the network. And so this is an important principle to understand, because A, B, and C are all inside. They're mirrors. And the self has to decide, as a business person, you have to decide, do you invest in USB-C or USB-A or B? Or what do you stick with? And on the one hand, you have the mediocrity of the network, because the biggest network is always in the status quo. Now, if you work with the status quo, there's going to be little or no innovation. It's going to be highly mediocre, but it's going to reach lots of people. Lots of people will understand what you're talking about. Now, on the other hand, over here, you have excellence. And excellence, the bleeding edge of innovation, is that 3 or 4 people, 5 or 6 people. The pinnacle of excellence is occupied by C-mail, which only a few people know about, only a few people understand. Later, it may be the next big thing. But right now, it is the best thing that nobody knows about. And over here is the mediocre thing that everyone knows about, that everyone's using. And so this is really the tension between this fractal representation, this fractal reality, where we are a microcosm of selves within the larger self. That we are a microcosm of our cult, basically. We're a microcosm. Our whole family lives within us. And what we want to do with this paradigm is basically you take the one and you reduce it into a fractal pattern, and reduce it to a fractal pattern, reduce it to a fractal pattern. So we have the ego, the family, the cult, and the species as a fractal pattern of memes, of thinking, feeling, speaking, doing, and being. And the tension, as we look at, because within the cult, there are geniuses that are highly intelligent, that are quote, ahead of their time. And there is average. Within the family, there are geniuses that are ahead of their time, and there are the average. And within you, there is the genius that is ahead of its time, and there is the average. And what you have to decide as you navigate, as you listen to this tapestry of inner and outer voices is which one do you listen to? And this is the tension between the genius and the network, between the exponential leverage of a large mediocre average and the potency of a small new emergent technology inside and out. You can think of the cult norm of, hey, how are you? How you doing? Everyone knows that. Everyone knows the answer. And it is almost completely meaningless. It's a very mediocre technology. Hey, how are you? Good. It doesn't get more mediocre than that. And yet, if you transfer that technology, that meme, to something more intelligent, how about pause, connect? What is the single most powerful and potent thing I can do to increase your well-being and minimize your suffering in the next 5 minutes? And now that we've gotten that meme established, let's create a little shortcut. No words, half a second, and launch. Now, in order for this to be intelligent, it has to land. You've got to know what it means. But far more importantly, you have to know how to answer those questions. First of all, you've got to get practice in deciding deal with pain or deal with pleasure. As I said, you got 10 minutes. What can I do that will reduce the most amount of unnecessary suffering in you, or add to the most sustainable amount of well-being? What can I do to bring you value or reduce your pain? So you got to quickly choose between one or the other. Now, you can't quickly choose between one or the other unless you understand brain chemistry, for one, because the brain has a 5-to-1 negative bias. So if you're in pain and you're in well-being, and I can reduce the pain or I can add to the well-being, you want to understand the underlying science that says you're going to ask me to reduce your pain, because your brain is going to obsess about the pain more than it will obsess about your good luck and your gratitude, which is exactly what people's brains have been doing for thousands of years. They've been ruminating about the negative. So if you can reduce the negative that's being ruminated about, take that away, you're going to get a 5-to-1 positive return relative to having me give you a compliment which you quickly ignore and go back to ruminating about the negative. So you'd answer, you can alleviate this pain by saying this, by doing this, by giving me this. Now, I've got to then know how to do that. And then, rather than the mediocrity of, hey, how are you? Don't answer the question, please. I'm not prepared for that. Good. You say, I'd like a 7-second hug, and I'd like you to hold a container at, hold me tight. Okay, here, okay. This little bit tighter, okay. Now I can feel the solidness and I can relax, and I'm gonna let out a loud wail of everything that's been bothering me for the last 2 weeks. Are you ready? Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, ah! Okay, 1 to 10, how did that feel? How much is it's gone. Great, okay. Thank you. Appreciate the interaction. Next. Now, that may be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 times more intelligent per second per unit of energy than, hey, how are you? Good to see you, while I'm thinking about other things. However, if no one's in the network, what's that weird guy doing with his hand? Okay, we'll delete the shorthand, right? That would have been more efficient, but okay, you need it spelled out. Okay, so what can I do in the next 5 seconds or the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, to reduce the most amount of unnecessary suffering in you or bring in the most amount of sustainable well-being? Gee, what's all this about? Discussing what's all this about is going to reduce your suffering? I've got to go. Okay, so you learned absolutely nothing. You didn't reduce suffering. You didn't increase your well-being. You stayed in the mediocre network because it's familiar. You didn't say, wow, what an interesting, good question. The problem is I don't know. Okay, become part of the network. Figure it out. Figure it out. Let's start with 1 minute. What's the biggest pain in your life right now? I can't stop thinking about what my father-in-law said at this and this and this. Okay? Are you kinetic? Do you release energy by sound? Do you release it? I don't know. I've never paid attention. Well, let's try it. Okay. So make a sound. I'm too embarrassed. I didn't let anything go. Okay, let's try different pressures. You can release sound at this pressure. Okay, good. Now you know, are you tracking this? Are you going to remember it so that next time you meet someone in this network, you can respond? No, this is weird. My friends would never get this. They never understand. It's kind of interesting, but this is weird. And this is the mediocrity defense in full force. I mean, almost all mediocre networks, particularly, you take anything in the United States, all you have to say in the United States is that's weird, i.e. it's different, it's divergent from what the status quo, to you should be embarrassed for doing anything different from the average. Because an American aspires to be part of the mediocrity of normalcy out of fear of being viewed as inadequate, worse than normal. Because when you diverge, you have the norm here. When you diverge from the norm, you can go up in intelligence or you can go down in intelligence. The norm, the mediocrity, is in the middle. It's average. Well, if someone lacks the intelligence to differentiate whether you're going up or going down, they're going to, with the negative bias we just talked about, assume that it's worse. I don't want to do that. That's not normal. Yes, hooray, hooray, it's not normal. But that's as far as it goes. Is it not normal up or is it not normal down in terms of intelligence? Does it yield more sustainable well-being per unit of energy invested or less? I haven't thought about that. Well, then you're not safe to diverge from the norm. You need to stay in the herd because you lack the mental competence to evaluate whether you're diverging in a constructive or destructive way. That's why people stay in the herd. You don't have to think at all. You don't have to be able, you just look around. What is most people doing? Oh, they're all doing that? Okay, I'll do that. And there's good logic there. Meaning if you do not know what you're doing, you should copy the majority. Even though they're wrong, even though they're mediocre, they're not as wrong or mediocre as parts of the fringe that are highly destructive. But you need the facility to discern which parts. Now, this network effect is really important. It's really important because even though C-mail is 50 times better, if no one gets the message, it's 0. And so one needs to be able to build a network of enough size for the technology in that network to be useful. And everyone who's deciding, because here's the network of the status quo, and over here, this is the 10x network. And you've got, if we back up just a moment, every 2-year-old, every adolescent healthily rebels against the absolute stupidity, insanity, cruelty, and bullshit of their network. That's bullshit. That's not fair. That's crazy, says the 2-year-old, says the adolescent. And they're absolutely right. It isn't fair. It is bullshit. It's hypocritical. It's corrupt. It's all of the things that the adolescent sees. The trouble is that the 2-year-old and the adolescent haven't got their own network. This is the crisis. You realize as you emerge into healthy adolescence just how fucked up everything is. The monetary system, the taxation system, the prison system, the education system, the government, corrupt political elite, the gangsters, the this law, the police, your boss, your teachers, your principal, your parents, they're all completely and utterly fucked up. In this way, this way, this way, this way, and this way, and this way. But here's what's missed by the adolescent. It's not complete fuck up. Every little thing they point to is, by and large, correct. The trouble is, it is the technology, corrupt and incompetent as it is, that has brought the species to this point. And to dissolve back into chaos, to reject the status quo, is to regress. Because if you take the adolescent tack of get rid of money, I'm not using it. Fuck work, I'm not going to work. Fuck education, I'm not learning anything. Fuck my parents, they're no good. I'm leaving. So the adolescent walks out into the chaos with no money, no education, no family to back them up. No, they're not going to use a calendar. That's fucked up. Organizing time, doing this. So fucked up. Things should be spontaneous and just work out. No calendar, none of this. They walk out and within 24 hours, they need to drink. Well, where's the water? It's in that system that's so corrupt. They need food. They need a place to sleep. They need a place to shower. Well, where is it? It's in those horrible things that are all part of the corrupt capitalist system. And so if they don't shave and they let go of the language of the cult, because let's face it, the cult is primarily encoded in language. So I'm not going to say, hey, how are you? I'm going to make a sound. It's just so much more pleasant. Can't everyone get, oh, my new language, right? Hopefully you got it. I did. Felt great. That's what I'm going to do authentically when I meet someone. But they don't get it because I don't have my own network. And so when you know, in the maturation process, you have 3 stages. You have sympathy, the child, antipathy, the adolescent, and then synthesis. Sympathy, antipathy, synthesis. The child accepts everything blindly and just because parents are God and goddess and you have to do what they say, otherwise they hit you or shame you or don't feed you or don't love you or don't tell you you're a good boy. So you do everything they say and learn the language they say and go to these buildings they say and eat the food they say because that's the way it is. The adolescent says, fuck all this. The principal's sleeping with a teacher who says don't have sex before marriage. They're not married. Mom and dad said always tell the truth, but then dad told me not to tell about his girlfriend. What a piece of shit, you know. Then the government said don't cheat on your taxes, but didn't they just found this politician having an offshore account cheating on his taxes? What a piece of crap, right? The adolescent wakes up and realizes the system is corrupt. The system is faulty. Been lied to. Been told I knew it. I knew it. It has never felt right. It just felt rotten from day one. But you promised it would work out and you lied. Fuck it all. I'm out of here, says the adolescent. But the adult, maybe after a few years barefoot on the street with no money and nobody getting their new song and their new dream, and it's like, you know, nobody's getting their whole story. What's all this about? Well, the adolescent may move towards the maturity of the adult. You know what? The system is fucked up. But pancakes, they're okay. You're okay. You know, making money by killing people is pretty fucked up. But making money selling organic vegetables, I'll go along with that. Money is not entirely fucked up. My parents, yep, all that was true, but they do know how to speak English, and it is coming in handy. They knew how to have sex, and that did produce me. They knew how to do some things, and those things worked out. And so the adult picks the best of the status quo that is necessary to function. The best of the status quo. I'll take a cell phone. Thank you. They're out to get me. They're spying on me. They're hacking all my emails. But I'd rather send an email than walk all the way to this person's house or wait 3 days for the postman when I need to get information across tomorrow, plus pay 45 cents when I could send it for free. It's an outrage, but I'm doing it anyway. And so you take the best of the competent part of the system and you use it. You delete the worst. You know, I'm not going to murder people for money. I'm not going to lie to my partner. I'm not going to cheat on my girlfriend. I get it, that's a norm, but I don't like it. I didn't like when this person lied to me. I'm not going to lie. So now you've got a synergy. The adult is a synergy between the best of the status quo and the deletion of the worst of the status quo, plus the adult usually iterates. It does its own version. So this is a broader context for the personas because we each have, whether we're a grown-up, well, really, if we are a grown-up, meaning we're over 25, we have a young adult, an adolescent, a child, an infant. And hopefully we have an adult that listens to them, a witness in the center, that listens to what they have to say and says, yes, adolescent, that is fucked up. I wonder if we could do a compromise. What if instead of leaving the monetary system entirely, what if we switched to Bitcoin instead of taking Visa? We could probably still, I bet there's enough. No, there isn't quite enough thing. What if we take check, cash, and Bitcoin, but don't take Visa? How about that? Well, the adolescent may or may not agree, but the adult may say, okay, we can function, we can do that. Okay, so what about we're not going to get drunk or do this or this, that, the other, but we're going to do this instead. We're going to get high through dancing. How about that? High is good, hangover not so good, kidney poisoning not so good, high is good. Can we dance into ecstasy? Let's give it a shot. Looks like these people, Sufis seem to be doing it for hundreds of years. How could we become a whirling dervish? Could we get high on whirling and dervishing? Well, let's give it a shot. You up for it? You want to get high? How about some dervishing, right? So the adult is trying to synthesize the best and the worst in various ways and iterate. And the adult is a politician within the inner self. And the question is, how corrupt is the politician? Because the inner child could say, no, I don't want that job. I don't want it. I don't want to work. Go away. Don't make me get out of bed. Well, what did your corrupt parents do? I'll give you $5 if you'll get out of bed, Well, and then you got out of bed and then they said, no, I'm not going to give you $5. You can lie or you can have some integrity as your politician. You can say, okay, here's your ice cream, 5-year-old, inside. Here's your ice cream. You got out of bed. You did this and this. Now you can do this. So you have politicians. And of course, just like the dilemma of the outer politicians, you have the dilemma of the inner politicians. Because politics and democracy is great when you have an educated population. If you've looked around, we do not have an educated population. What happens when the majority of a country is so ignorant they don't know that they're ignorant? So they believe their lies and vote on the basis of those lies. Well, what happens is they only vote for the politician who lies to them. That sounds about right. That's what I believe. That politician represents me. So, if we will not elect politicians that tell the truth on the outside, how will we elect politicians that tell the truth on the inside? If our inner adult tells our 5-year-old, who's saying, no, I'm not going to the job interview, I don't want it, and the adolescent saying, it's pig-headed, filled with crap, money, corruption, sellouts. We're not going to that damn job interview. We're staying right here playing video games like important, principled people. And so what does a politician do? Get this job, you can make more money, and then you can play more video games. We'll expose the corruption of the CEO once we get the job, right? Okay, we'll get out of bed. But I'm warning you, we're not buying into this crap. We're not interested in making money. We want the head of that CEO. What if the CEO wasn't corrupt? I don't believe it, says the child and the adolescent. You said you would get us a corrupt CEO. Get him. And so how do you, as a politician on the inside, navigate all your corruption, all your ignorance, all your stupidity on the inside when they have the majority of the vote? Your 5-year-old never took a look around. He's got all the rage and intensity of a 5-year-old. So just, you look at the extremism in a country and a cult. Why is it that 5% of the most extreme radical religious members, leftists, rightists, why do they get 50% of the bills through? 5%. Why are they punching 10 times their weight? Because they're intense. Because nobody wants to fight with them. Nobody wants to educate them. They're stubborn inside. That's not the way of it. They're trying to get me. He's trying to punish me. No, he's trying to hold the door for you. No, he's looking down for me as a chauvinist pig. No, he's holding the door for you. You've got boxes. Okay, we'll close the door. Okay, bang into the window. Try and drop the box. Okay, good. You've protected yourself from those chauvinist pigs. Good. All right. So you want to help carrying the box? Okay, we wouldn't want to dream of insulting you. Okay, carry on. When you have nothing but lies on the inside that have most of the vote, that refuse to vote, I will not vote for anyone who says this is the case. Okay. So who's going to get the vote? The politician who lies, according to your lies. It's a wonderful narrative. It's a wonderful paradigm to understand, as above, as below, as within, as without, that the psyche is as fractal as everything else. The psyche is as fractal as everything else. And we can learn about what's going on inside when we look at what's going on outside in our cult. We can learn about what's going outside when we look on the inside at our cult, at our fractal representation of the cult. So, what's a good progression? What works in evolution? So life, brilliant system of creating the entire multiverse out of nothing. What works very well in evolution is, first of all, to understand every single system, including language and thought, is flawed. It's inefficient, it's flawed, it's imperfect. It's ultimately a lie. But it can be more true, more useful, more efficient than something else. And so what we're really looking about is, are we moving towards evolution with our inner dialogues, our relationship with the self, or are we moving towards destruction? And the way to ask and answer this question is to look at the bell curve of intelligence, or the exponential curve of intelligence. So intelligence is the efficiency with which time, money, and natural resources is transformed into sustainable, felt human well-being, which of course includes the host body. Only a fool waters and babies the plants and puts poison in the soil out of which that plant grows. We are the fruit of this planet. And if you poison the tree that produces the fruit out of the delusion of the ego that I'm a separate identity from the tree that gave birth to me, you are a fool. And life doesn't tend to look kindly on fools. It tends to kill them off at a more accelerated rate because they insist on diverging from reality. Reality shows this is all the data. The fool says, well, I understand that's the entire nature of the universe, but I have a better idea. Let's go over here instead. So life tends to evolve things with this protocol of maturation. Download the best program that anyone's used so far. That's your parents and your cult. It's terrible. It's just the best so far. Download it. Start with that. That's your baseline. Live through the system. Stay alive. And notice every single injustice, every single stupidity. Why? Because soon you're going to inherit the system, and hopefully you'll have a little bit more sympathy for the next generation who's now reliving your cruelty that you're in charge of. So you notice and add up every egregious sin in the system, all of its stupidity, corruption, the whole thing, so that when you move into a place of authority, because first you have to master the system. Money is corrupt. Okay, how are you going to change it? Make a lot of money. How about that? Make a lot of money and then invent cryptocurrency. Invent another medium. Write an app that is better than money. With what? With money. You see, you can't go back to an island with coconuts in the middle of nowhere and not talk to anyone and not use the internet and not use the corrupt coal-powered grid, not use the English language. That's all full of shit. They stole it from the Greeks anyways, and this and that. It was a theft. It was a violation. And the Christians, what a bunch of crap, stealing this from this tribe over here, borrowed that from the Greek gods. They were so corrupt. Just throw it all out. It's all crap. So there you are on your coconut island, and of course you can't write. That would be a violation, a concession to the cult, that taught language. When you're a free thinker, though, what are you going to think about without words? So there you are. You regress to where things were before. So that doesn't tend to work. And the adolescent does have a period of holding out. This is wrong. I'm not doing it. But eventually, the adolescent is dead or marginalized or grows up. And what does growing up mean? It means getting competent in the cult, learning to make money, learning to do a job well so that you can make money, learning to speak and speak well so that people can understand you, learning, if the education system is crap, maybe getting a degree, at least going through it so you can note all the crappy things it's doing. And then you come out with more freedom. You have a lot of money, you can now devote yourself to reinventing the system. But because you're doing it on the upside, because you dropped up rather than dropping down and refusing all participation. Now, you also have to, by this point, you can't disown your shadow. So this is, one of the more delusionary aspects of the adolescent ego. My fucked up parents, I want nothing to do with them, says the adolescent. It's exactly how the adolescent feels. Except you do have something to do with them. If they hadn't done all the fucked up things they did, you wouldn't have been born. They were fucking up long before you came along. Lying about this, hurting this person's feelings, killing trees, driving petroleum cars. They were doing all that long before you were born. It's how they got to the point where they gave birth to you. You've got a lot to do with that, meaning that system brought you into being. And then if you go on the, transcend up the system pattern rather than drop out and live on the coconut island and hide from the immigration authorities because you don't believe in a passport, sit there in the transcendent moment being stung by scorpions. Because you failed up, meaning you took the best of the system and became competent. You learned how to speak. You learned how to date in the ridiculous world of chauvinist pigs, right? Because you figured out how to get laid, how to make someone feel great after spending time with you. Because you did your work better than average. Because you made more money than average. Because you've created more free time than average. Because you've learned more than average in this fucked up system. Now you have the resources necessary, number one. The track record necessary, number two. And the respect of people in the cult. Here they are. They're looking at you in the cult. And you have enough. See, you need a strong, it's like a rocket. When you lift out of the status quo of your cult, it is the same experience as a Falcon 9 lifting out of Earth's orbit. It takes tremendous thrust. Billions of dollars of R&D went into getting the thrust and the equipment right to just break out of the tremendous gravitational pull of the status quo. And you break out. You break out of the orbit. And then it's effortless. Then a few little puffs, and you carry on at 16,000 miles an hour for thousands of miles. But you need that thrust, that force to break out of your cult. You need enough energy stored in your system to break orbit from the cult. But once you're out into space, into the vastness of the unknown, you can go anywhere you want with little or no energy. And if you do it safely and return, and safely and return, other travelers will want to go out there with you. If you can make it fun and safe and 10x better, everyone will want to go with you. And that's how the migration moves from the cult to the 10x technology. 10x living, 10x relationships. But the network effect is critical. The network effect is critical. The network effect means you need enough people that respond give me a 30% hug, 10% stronger. Great. I'm going to let it out. 10 seconds. A 100x return on investment. Because you know the code, you know the language, you know the code, you know the language, you know the flow. You got a new cult that will inevitably, in the face of evolution, become the new normal, become the enemy of evolution and excellence in the next generation, who sees all this stuff. What's all this stuff here and screaming? We don't need to do that. You have to do this, and you do it in virtual goggles, and gets better, gets better, gets better. So as you're listening to all the different voices inside you, as the politician, trying to educate parts of you that do not want to be educated. Try educating an American who doesn't want to be educated, who already knows everything. Get off my land or I'll shoot you. Well, you're not going to get past that unless you can figure out how to deal with your 3-year-old who wants to eat ice cream at 4 a.m. just to sabotage the job interview. Get off my land. I don't want to hear it. I just want my ice cream. Well, can you deal with that 2-year-old? You're not going to deal with that redneck any better. And if your entire life is in limbo because you can't talk with a 2-year-old who doesn't know anything and doesn't know they don't know anything and doesn't want to know anything, and they've got the votes, because they'll have a tantrum like you've never seen before, and, okay, what do I have to do, two-year-old? Stop it, you're embarrassing me. Okay, give me my ice cream, says a 2-year-old. Inside and out. So it's a useful paradigm, as within, as without, because you can always see an object more clearly when you look from multiple perspectives. You can see this object from this one little dot here. You can get a pretty good view of the up to here, but you can't see around the corner, right? You get to there and the eyes aren't round, but if you see from this perspective here and this perspective here, from this one you can see here. You can't see around the corner here, but from here you can see all the way to here. You still got a blind spot, but if you can meet someone inside of you or someone outside of you who looks at life from the opposite point of view intelligently. By intelligently, I mean they're not going insane. They're not saying that yellow is green. They're saying yellow is yellow, but I have a different opinion of yellow based on this data point and this data point and this data point. And the data points have coherence. They're looking from this angle. The sun is over here. You're saying it's bright and light on the star. They're over here in the shadow. And they're saying it's dark in here. It's dark in here. The star is dark. No, the star is light. The star is dark. Okay, let's look at the data points. So there's, I see. It's light on this side viewed from this angle. It's dark over here from this other angle. Useful information you cannot get by talking to someone who agrees with your point of view. Nothing wrong with your point of view. Everyone has a point of view, and from their point, they see one thing, and from their point, they see another. But if you can see all points of view, or more than your normal dogma, you can at least know that there are many points of view, and that there is in any opinion, there is a 360-degree angle that has validity. In other words, whatever the object is, there are perspectives around the object, whatever it is. And whatever those perspectives see, they're going to be the opposite. So take the Earth, for example. Let's say this object is the Earth. So here's the Earth. And right now, there are people all around the globe. You call someone at the North Pole, right? Is it light or dark right now? They say it's dark. You call someone at the South Pole. Is it light or dark now? They say it's light. You say, well, one of them's lying. They're sure to be up to something. Which is it? You moron? Send me a photo. Okay, there's a light photo here. There's a dark photo here. What is this? Is it hot? Is it cold? Let's ask people at the equator. Let's ask people at the North Pole. Let's ask people at the South Pole. You say it's cold, and you say it's cold, but you say it's hot, and you say it's hot. Which is it? Something fishy around here, right? The arrogance of one's point of view when we're dealing with something as complex and multidimensional as life is that anything that has anything big and worth exploring is so big that it's going to be surrounded by legitimate points of view for that object all around it. And those people are not going to agree. But if you listen to all of them and have a both-and perspective rather than an either-or perspective, you will recognize we don't have a big enough picture. There's an object out there, and we're in movement. It's not a stationary object. It's a dynamic object. And this and this and this, and it all fits together in a dimensional perspective. And that's what you get when you look at the self, when you look at you in reality, through the lens of your 5-year-old, your 4-year-old, your 3-year-old, your 10-year-old, your 12-year-old, your 20-year-old, through the lens of your lover, through your warrior, through your peacemaker, through your manipulator, through your bully, through your victim. When you look through all of these different lenses, they all have a point of view. The victim says, play dead, play weak, find someone who will be a support or whatever. The bully says, no, bully them, shout them. The warrior says, hold the truth, do this. The lover says, let's seduce them, they'll give us what we want. All of these different voices, they all have evidence, they have data in their history that says this could work. And you have to, as the witness in the psyche, or as the head of the family in the patriarchy, or as the president in the political hierarchical structure, you have to decide which of all those things is going to yield the most amount of sustainable well-being. And over here you have your most brilliant voices that the world is not ready for, that are true, that are the right way to go, that nobody understands. You've got no network. And over here, you have the network, millions of people all doing it this way, that is mediocre. And it's heartbreaking to have to look at the psyche, to look at the self inside and say, you know what? You are right. That is unfair, it's unnecessary, it's inefficient, it's absurd, and it should be this way. but nobody gets it. Nobody understands it. There's no network to plug that in. You do have a USB-C port, and it's a better port than a USB-A port. But nobody has any USB-C cables. So until there's enough cables to shift the network, you've got to adapt that USB-C port to a USB-A port, deal with the inefficient and slow data process, until eventually, in the evolutionary process, the majority in the dominant state of mediocrity catches up to the minority, to the idea that's so great if only people would understand. And one of the hardest things for a politician, for a king, for a queen, for the witness inside the self to do is to go to this genius over here and say, I'm so sorry. Everyone, me, the world, would be better off with your version and your technology. It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. But there is no network, number one. Number two, you haven't got rank. There's no network. You don't have rank within the cult. Number three, you don't have the resources to create a network. And you're not going to get the resources until you have a network. And so you're going to have to give up a 10x improvement, delete it, to come over into this tedious mediocrity of a fucked up cult. You're going to have to check this one, and check this one, and check this one, and check this one. And by this time, you're going to be worn out. You're going to be numb to the pain, because if you're not numb to the pain of the mediocrity, you can't get through it for 10, 20, 25 fucking years of eating soot, of chewing ashes, dashed hopes, bitterness. If you didn't numb yourself, you didn't drink a little too much, watch a little bit too much TV, you couldn't get there. But now that you've got the resources and the rank, it doesn't seem so bad. It's a little bit comfortable. It doesn't seem so bad. And now you're going to have to spend this energy feeling again, becoming aware of the outrage of the system you're a part of. And tapping into all this comfortable resource that you can just ride the gravy train, right? You're now the CEO, you're now the top performing salesperson, you're now the head of the family rather than the abused child. And you're going to take all that energy and go back over to here to that adolescent who was right the whole time and say, I'm sorry it took me so long. I was wrong. But I've been doing this for you. I've been asking you to shut up for 25 years. Now I need to hear what you have to say again. The world has changed. Now we're ready to launch orbit. Maybe the adolescent doesn't want to talk. It's too late. I've given up long ago. Maybe you're like, fine then, I'll just enjoy my penthouse. Keep my stock bonuses. So, can you make it back? come back to that point and lift off into that iterative thing? And can you be successful enough that people want to follow? That people who are afraid of the unknown because they're afraid of facing their trauma, and all trauma lives in the unknown, can you get them to come over here? If you can leave Earth's orbit. You can embark on a hero's journey with some reasonable chance of return. Plenty of heroes that go out into the woods, don't come back. Go to the dragon's cave, and don't return. But you can have some sense of the return. Now, the adolescent doesn't want to do this. The child doesn't want to do it. I'm not doing it. I'm not budging. I want it now. But the adolescent can pivot into the adult can emerge out of the adolescent in the synergy of sympathy and antipathy to create something new. And this is how evolution occurs in the human species. The cult tries to kill who you are, using the immune system of every cult that attacks all minorities and divergences from the status quo. The cult will do its best to kill your spirit, to kill your uniqueness, to kill your beauty. Do you love yourself and the cult enough to recover and to survive? So that, having gone through the Hunger Games, having gone through the trials, you can restore, you can upgrade the cult that wasn't quite efficient enough to kill you off, to kill off your uniquely divergent spirit, your uniquely divergent self. This journey is going on outside, it's going on inside. And this map may be useful to you as you consider how to guide yourself, how to guide the many selves through the journey from childhood to adolescence to adulthood, from acceptance to rebellion to synergy, and then to transcendence, then to liftoff, to create the most competent version of the cult that there is. Become highly successful at that, and then lift off. In the adolescent's language, to become better at selling out than anyone else. To become so better at selling out that you gather the resources to take the species to a new plateau, to lift out of the orbit of your cult. And that is a full revolution. That is a life, and a life that I think is worth living.